Welcome to Storyflix. In this video, we will explain Wednesday 3:30 p.m. This movie tells the story of a woman who was dumped by her boyfriend and tries to win back his heart by making him jealous with the help of her close childhood friend. Will her closeness with her childhood friend actually lead to a new love? Let's find out in Wednesday 3:30 p.m. Wednesday 3:30 p.m. begins by showing a young girl in a cafe with a man who is her boyfriend. The man apparently was breaking up with the girl and then just left her alone. After the man left, the girl was seen crying and throwing their couple ring into the coffee. The woman is named Soon Woo, while the man is Bak Soon Yu. The incident when Soon Yu dumped Eun Woo was right on Wednesday at 3:30 p.m. The scene moves to show another couple who are in a different cafe. The woman, named Gong Na-yoon, while the man sitting in front of her is her best friend, Yoon Jae-won. Na-yoon told Jae-won about her plans to go abroad, so she will hand over the cafe to Jae-won. From their conversation, it was revealed that Na-yoon and Jae-won actually have feelings for each other but don't dare to reveal it. Jae-won plans to postpone the declaration of love until Na-yoon returns from overseas. At that time, Na-yoon gave a pair of couple rings left in the cafe from the previous visitor. She asked Jae-won to keep the couple ring when the owner came back to pick it up. Long story short, Eun Woo was walking home when she accidentally bumped into Jae-won. They then recognize each other because they used to be childhood friends. To treat homesickness, Jae-won went to Eun Woo's house and they joked and talked about memories from the past. While chatting, Jae-won suddenly received a call telling him that Na-yoon's cafe that was entrusted to him had caught fire. He rushed to the cafe which had been burned by the fire. After that incident, Eun Woo and Jae-won went to a drinking place on the side of the road and Jae-won cried about his life's problems. Especially regarding Na-yoon who went overseas and he who had to wait for her to return. Eun Woo also talked about Soon Yu who just dumped her. Fast forward, that night Jae-won stayed at Eun Woo's house, and in the morning they had breakfast together, and then separated to continue their respective activities. Arriving at work, Eun Woo, who is in the same office as Soon Yu, met her ex with his new girlfriend in the elevator. She felt sad but tried to suppress these feelings. That night when she returned home, Eun Woo was surprised to see Jae-won already there. Eun Woo kicked Jae-won out, but Jae-won begged to be allowed to stay because he didn't have the money to rent a place to live after having to compensate for the cafe fire. Unfortunately, Eun Woo still didn't melt, so Jae-won offered to restore Eun Woo's relationship with Soon Yu if he was allowed to live in the house. Jae-won then promised that he would move when he managed to return Soon Yu to Eun Woo. Finally Eun Woo agreed with the offer and told the details of the incident when she broke up with Soon Yu. Eun Woo said she broke up at exactly 3:30 p.m. and interestingly, bad luck always comes to her at that time. So she hates 3:30 p.m. The next day while at work, at 3:30 p.m., Eun Woo got a message from Jae-won to go somewhere. When she arrived at the place, Jae-won took a photo of Eun Woo and wrote a sweet caption before uploading the photo to social media. Apparently Jae-won did that so that Soon Yu would see the post and know that Eun Woo wasn't sad on Wednesday, 3:30 p.m. When he was back at home, Jae-won revealed his plan to upload sweet posts on social media every Wednesday at 3:30 p.m. This was done not only to let Soon Yu know that Eun Woo was no longer sad, so that he would realize his mistake of breaking up with Eun Woo. However, when she was at the office the next day, Eun Woo actually crossed paths with Soon Yu and his new girlfriend in the elevator. Eun Woo saw them hand in hand affectionately, which made her immediately call Jae-won to ask him to come. When Jae-won visited her at the office, they immediately made out too, right in front of Soon Yu and his new girlfriend. This seems to be enough to disturb Soon Yu, because when Eun Woo was alone on the rooftop, he approached her and asked who the man was making out to her. Eun Woo then proudly answered that the man was Jae-won, her new boyfriend. Eun Woo's explanation apparently made Soon Yu even more worried that he seemed to be daydreaming at the office more often. Time changed again, and on the following Wednesday, Jae-won said he couldn't go on a date with Eun Woo and take photos for social media because he had work to do. Instead, Jae-won promised to give Eun Woo his own surprise.
Okay.
On that day at the office, Eun Woo again received a message from Jae-won to come to a place. She then excitedly came to the place, which was apparently a garden with falling cherry blossoms. But unfortunately, the park was full of couples on dates, which immediately made Eun-woo feel sad. She was walking alone in the park, and suddenly a strong wind blew her cold. Her sadness increased many times. It's just at that time, suddenly a jacket is slung over her shoulder. Jae-won apparently came and told her that the date at the park was the surprise he had promised. They then took a walk in the park and didn't forget to take photos to share on social media. The day passed, and Eun-woo was in the office when she got a call asking her to come to a shop immediately. When Eun-woo arrived, she was surprised because the shop owner said someone had adopted a puppy for her. Eun-woo then felt very happy, and that's when Jae-won came, saying that it was he who adopted the puppy for her. They then took a photo with the dog and then uploaded it on social media. Eun-woo and Jae-won thought of a proper name for the puppy at home, until Eun-woo finally decided to name him Hoo-choo. Jae-won then invited Eun-woo to have a drink together, but when they were about to leave, outside the house, there was already Seung-yu who wanted to meet Eun-woo. Eun-woo and Seung-yu finally met at the cafe and asked each other how they were. Apparently Seung-yu came to see if Eun-woo was really happy. After meeting with Seung-yu, Eun-woo finally still went to drink with Jae-won at a convenience store. She recounted the conversation with Seung-yu and was annoyed that her ex seemed unaffected. Fast forward to the next day. Jae-won was surprised to see Eun-woo and her office friends coming to his cafe during their lunch break. Jae-won then without hesitation served them and brought orders. That's when one of the cafe employees recognized Eun-woo as a customer who had previously thrown away the couple ring. After they all went home, the employee told Jae-won that the owner of the couple ring that Na-yoon gave him was a girl with short and beautiful hair, which was none other than Eun-woo. The employee also told how the man break up and dumped the girl in this cafe. The employee's story made Jae-won feel very sad, imagining the wound Eun-woo felt when the relationship ended. For that the next day, he took Eun-woo to an ancient restaurant that looked old. It turns out that the restaurant is where Eun-woo and Jae-won used to eat when they were little. Eun-woo also felt very happy and excited to taste the food again. Meanwhile, Jae-won captured Eun-woo's happiness in posts on social media. That night, it rained very heavily, accompanied by lightning. Eun-woo apparently felt scared, so she intended to take Hoo-choo into her room. Unexpectedly in the living room, she saw Jae-won who also intended to take Hoo-choo into his room. They then scrambled to carry Hoo-choo, and right at that moment, lightning struck loudly which immediately made both of them scream in fear. Finally Jae-won and Eun-woo decided to sleep together in the living room with Hoo-choo. Time rewinds and the scene changes to Eun-woo's birthday. Jae-won has already prepared a birthday cake for Eun-woo and also plans to give the couple ring back to Seung-yu. But because he waited too long for Eun-woo to come home from work, Jae-won fell asleep on the sofa. When Eun-woo finally came home, she saw the birthday cake on the table and prayed before blowing out the candles. Her actions woke Jae-won up and scolded her for not waking him up. But Eun-woo just laughed and instead teased him for sleeping while hugging the wine bottle. After that the next day, Jae-won and Seung-yu met at the cafe. Jae-won returned their couple ring and said how Eun-woo had been stuck in time on Wednesday, 3:30 p.m. Meanwhile, Eun-woo seems to be buying shoes as a gift for Jae-won, who has done so many things for her. Eun-woo plans to give the gift when they meet at 3:30 p.m. Sure enough, at 3:30 p.m. Jae-won asked her to come to a park. But when Eun-woo arrived at the park, she didn't see Jae-won and only got a message that the project was finished. In the park, there was Seung-yu who was waiting for her. Eun-woo and Seung-yu sat and talked together in the garden. Seung-yu then gave their couple ring back to Eun-woo and asked that they could mend their relationship. He said that just as fate brought them together with the ring again, fate would also bring them together again. Eun-woo also received a declaration of love from Seung-yu and put their couple ring back on. Meanwhile, Jae-won is packing his things to quickly move out of Eun-woo's house because his mission is complete. But Eun-woo, who came home and saw Jae-won instead, asked him to drink and asked why he was moving. Jae-won once again explained that the project had been completed and as promised, he would be moving out of the house. The day passed and Eun-woo was at home alone when someone knocked on the door. She also felt happy because she thought Jae-won had come to her house. But when she opened the door, she actually saw Seung-yu, who came with a lot of groceries. Seung-yu revealed his intention to cook food for Eun-woo, then they would eat together. While eating together, Eun-woo looked a little gloomy. Unfortunately, Soon-yu didn't realize the change and instead asked Eun-woo to get married. The question surprised Eun-woo, and she asked for time before she could answer Soon-yu's proposal. Meanwhile, at another time, Jae-won was on the bus and accidentally saw Soon-yu sitting on the bench in front of him. Soon-yu didn't realize Jae-won's whereabouts because he was busy on the phone. From the phone conversation, Jae-won caught that Soon-yu was planning to meet the girls at the club. After getting off the bus, Jae-won felt sad and confused because he was the one who united Eun-woo with a jerk like Soon-yu. At that time, Jae-won then realized he had more feelings for Eun-woo. The next day, Jae-won contacted Eun-woo and asked her to meet. He intended to confess his feelings to her right then and there. But when Jae-won was running to get to Eun-woo, he suddenly stopped after seeing someone in front of him. The person was apparently Na-yoon, who had returned from overseas. They chatted at the cafe, and Na-yoon said she wanted to surprise Jae-won by coming back early. Meanwhile, at that time, Eun-woo was waiting for Jae-won's arrival and dressed up at home. Unfortunately, Jae-won sent a message that he wasn't coming that night. Jae-won is spending time with Na-yoon shopping for clothes together. Meanwhile, at her house, Eun-woo hugged Hoo-chu and realized his temperature was high. Eun-woo was worried about Hoo-chu and immediately took him to the animal hospital. While waiting for Hoo-chu to be examined, Eun-woo, who was still afraid and worried, called Jae-won. At that time, Jae-won, who had come home from shopping and was about to stop by Na-yoon's house, got a call from Eun-woo informing him of Hoo-chu's condition. Without thinking, Jae-won looked for a taxi and left Na-yoon to see Eun-woo. This made Na-yoon wonder if there was already someone else who could make Jae-won go to her with just a phone call. At that time, Jae-won came to see Eun-woo, who was crying, and immediately hugged her. After that, Jae-won also stayed at Eun-woo's house to accompany her. Eun-woo was seen covering Jae-won, who was sleeping on the sofa, and looked at him while saying how she felt so scared. Then the next day, Eun-woo intended to come to the cafe to meet Jae-won and give him the shoes she had not had time to give. But when she arrived at the cafe, Eun-woo saw Jae-won talking intimately with a woman. Eun-woo, who was initially curious about the woman's figure, then concluded that she was Na-yoon, the woman Jae-won had told her about. Time flies until one day Eun-woo gets the task of organizing a product launch event. When she came on launch day with Soon-yu, she was surprised to see Jae-won with Na-yoon. They met, then the four decided to eat together. Jae-won introduced Na-yoon to Eun-woo, and they had a friendly conversation. Soon-yu also looks intimate by hugging Eun-woo's shoulder. One day, Eun-woo got a call from someone who asked her to meet. Eun-woo thought the person wearing the bear costume was Jae-won, so she smiled happily. But her smile immediately faded when the costume mask was opened and the figure inside turned out to be Soon-yu. When they sat together in the park after that, Eun-woo realized her feelings had changed for Soon-yu.
미안해. 나 이거 안 받을게.
She then decided to end their relationship, even though Soon-yu insisted that Jae-won already had someone else. Eun-woo said firmly that her heart was not living with Soon-yu anymore. After breaking up with Soon-yu, Eun-woo walked in the park and unexpectedly fell because her heels were too high. She felt pain. And at that time, Jae-won suddenly came and carried her to sit on the bench. They chatted cheerfully for a while before returning to have to part. After returning to the office, Eun-woo got a job to elevate a story into an event. Unbeknownst to her, the author of the story is Na-yoon. The story seems to be about Na-yoon and Jae-won's love journey, which they both talked about on the show. Eun-woo, who had no idea about it, actually got the task of congratulating her as the project manager for the event. Eun-woo finally prayed for their relationship to last forever. Unfortunately, Jae-won and Na-yoon's romance doesn't seem to last long. After the event, Jae-won met Na-yoon and revealed his plans to go abroad. Na-yoon begged Jae-won to stay, even though later she had to see Jae-won from the side like before. But Jae-won insisted on his plan. The next day, Jae-won also met Eun-woo, who was finally able to give Jae-won a shoes gift. He said goodbye to Eun-woo after telling her his plan. But Eun-woo didn't want Jae-won to leave her, and she chased him to the airport. Unfortunately, she couldn't find Jae-won. 1 year passed. Jae-won had moved abroad and even accidentally met Soon-yu. He saw Soon-yu with another girl and asked how Eun-woo was. Of course, Soon-yu said that his relationship with Eun-woo ended 1 year ago. Knowing this, Jae-won rushed back to Korea to meet Eun-woo. The last scene of Wednesday 3:30 p.m. shows Eun-woo back at the park, where the cherry blossoms are blooming. Suddenly, a jacket slung over her shoulders. And when she turned her head, she saw Jae-won already standing beside her. Jae-won then explained the reason for his departure abroad and asked Eun-woo to be his girlfriend. Wednesday 3:30 p.m. ended with Jae-won and Eun-woo finally being together. The moral that can be learned from this movie is that we don't need to chase after someone who decided to leave. If he is the right person, then fate will bring him back.